gives us a lot to think about. But the satanic panic really kind of took off with the daycare sexual abuse scandal idea. Originally at the McMartin Preschool in California in around '83, a woman dumped off her 3-year-old child. She was a schizophrenic alcoholic. She didn't enroll him in the school, she just kind of dumped him off there, and later she had decided while a routine inspection of his anus was taking place that he must have been molested. Evidence of this wasn't found, but Lawrence Pazder, the co-author of Michelle Remembers, had recently been in the community talking about satanic ritual abuse. The idea really took hold, and soon everybody forgot the initial allegation while they were searching for a satanic cult conspiracy within this school. And again, there was this idea that tunnels were underground and that children were being transported by plane or other places, that ritual sacrifices were taking place underneath the schools, and that politicians and actors and actresses and all these kinds of A-list people were involved, including Chuck Norris, who one of the kids fingered and during the course of interrogation. And this was actually meant to disprove the allegations. A rational investigator of interrogation techniques thought that the way these kids were being questioned was inappropriate, so in order to prove that the kids were making false allegations and just agreeing to anything, he had pictures, including pictures of Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris was fingered. This didn't deter some of the satanic panic conspiracy theorists who just assimilated Chuck Norris into the plot. This is how some of the child interviews looked, and these were kind of just pulled at random at making the slides, but you can see how coercive they were. Telling the kids that they were smart if they disclosed abuse, even if they originally said they had no recollection of abuse at all, and oftentimes or almost entirely, that's what the kids said, but they weren't believed. Ironically, the movement to pursue the conspiracy theory called themselves Believe the Children. That's exactly what they weren't doing. For instance, can you remember the naked pictures? It was asked of a child. Child shakes head no. Interviewer, can't remember that part? Shakes head no. Why don't you think about that for a while, okay? Your memory might come back to you. How about Naked Movie Star? You guys remember that game? No. The interviewer says, everybody remembered that game. Let's see if we can figure it out. Were you ever afraid of Kelly? No, no, no. Would you tell me if you were afraid of her? And then the interviewer saying things like, you see all the kids in this picture? Every single kid in this picture has come here and talked to us. Isn't that amazing? These kids came to visit us and we found out they know a lot of yucky old secrets from that old school. And they all came and told us secrets, and they're helping us figure out this whole puzzle of what used to go on in that place. And these interviews would go on to upwards of 12 hours or more, beating these kids up until they finally agreed, yeah, shit, okay, there were Satanists and we were killing things, and there were robots and evil, magic carpets and things like these were the kinds of things, the kinds of accusations they were making, and the kinds of accusations some people were taking seriously. It was one of the longest criminal trials in United States history, did not end in a single conviction, but still to this day, the conspiracy theorists point to this as a massive cover-up and say that they were vindicated by the presence of tunnels found under the McMartin Preschool. And if you're like me, you think, well, so what if there's fucking tunnels? It's a long way to go to say that there were tunnels, so all of the rest of this must have been true. It's even worse than that. The guy who found these tunnels was a FBI agent, former FBI agent by the name of Ted Gunderson. Is anybody familiar with Ted Gunderson? Ted Gunderson is often invoked as the man who's proven it all with any conspiracy. There was no conspiracy theory that Ted Gunderson didn't believe. And his stamp of authority as being an former FBI agent in charge, and I had requested his FBI file at one point. He had correspondence with Hoover all the way up to Webster, and he was a high-ranking official in the FBI. But obviously his critical thinking skills were not in order at all. And we have a good deal.
In my opinion, I can't prove it. These are mind-controlled victims, MK Ultra mind-controlled victims. And the whole thing is designed to destroy the Second Amendment, to take our guns away from us.
And I said to myself, what's this all about? I don't think about Satanism. I read about it in the Bible, of course, and that's about it. The sacrificial ritual, a deep incision beginning at the sternum area of the chest, is made with a long blade sacrificial dagger. This, of course, is most obviously a satanic ceremony.
The most important thing is we have a mission to save our own souls and save the souls of all of us around us. So,
Establishes there is a conspiracy and ill infiltration into the lower levels of the government all the way to the White House.
other parts of the victims are warm,
as, or charm, or worn as charms, or saved to be used in spellcasting. The final goal was to take over the world, the whole world government. Where the immoral who serves the head of another immoral gathers and takes in that immortal's life force, energizing him. Much like in the series of The Highlander. So checking out the Jack Kennedy assassination, I learned, no question about it, that it was a joint hit by the CIA and the Chicago mobs. This evil element has infiltrated virtually every level of society. I finally figured out when my blood pressure, they would give me some kind of a gas that raised my blood pressure. And I tell this publicly because they're probably going to do it to a lot of us. And I say that there's close to 4 million, if not 4 million, practicing Satanists in America today. That's 1.5% of the population. The cut is then brought downward to the belly button, and a vertical incision is made across the abdomen, intersecting the first cut, forming an upside-down cross. Because I met with Osama bin Laden in the spring of 1986. By the way, this dovetails, the satanic cult movement dovetails into, as part of the Illuminati, dovetails into drugs, prostitution, homosexuality, the whole 9 yards.
Turn your old car in for cash, okay? Because they don't have the computer in the old cars. And they want everybody to buy a new car so that they keep track of us.
I think it's mind control. No question about it. The children are disappearing in this country at the rate of 83 per hour. That's over 700,000 children a year. World Trade Center 93, and that 911 is actually a ploy in order to take away many of our constitutional rights and civil liberties. In some cases, some of the internal organs and parts of the victim's body are consumed by the group, as it is believed that immersed sexual powers, strength and psychic powers can be ordained through this process.
It's been planned 2 centuries.
In the desert in Area 51. But the bottom line is another step toward taking over the United States and taking over the world. The Illuminati plan, the golden plan.
Well, we're talking about a police state.
There's thousands of Americans out there. By the way, I've been shot with a laser beam twice. I have been told by a source that's reliable, a source that's involved in the intelligence community, that there is an extensive city underground in Las Vegas, Nevada area. It is a conspiracy. This was obviously a satanic ceremony.
We all need to leave the country to save our lives. We've got ready for martial law. Everything's pointing to martial law.
That is iced tea from last night. That's what I spent my lecture. Okay. Chanting, heels, coming out with a movie. People think it's fiction, it's not true, and yet 5, 10, 8, 15 years later, whatever it might be, it comes to pass. And so it makes me think, hey, do you think people in Hollywood know what's going on ahead of time? Well, I think we do, most of us here. Ain't mind control, no question about it, in my opinion. The former son of darkness, now a child of the true light, Jesus Christ. This is all on the internet, by the way.
So that's Ted Gunderson, the most credible source of information you can find, and somebody who's still invoked, even with Pizzagate, to prove that this is all going on, and you see those kinds of parallels with Pizzagate, of course, the underground tunnels and everything else. But what about those underground tunnels? Well, first and foremost, Ted could never get away from being considered credible, even by mainstream media standards, and that, of course, was real mistake.
James, you've actually called Sylvia Brown a villain. We spoke to Ted Gunderson, who's a retired senior special agent in charge of the FBI in Los Angeles. He's worked with Sylvia, and he says he's worked with her quite a bit, and he says this about her. He says, quote, "I've worked with numerous psychics in the past, and very few are really on target, but Sylvia Brown is probably one of the most accurate psychics in the country." Now, that's from a former senior FBI official. Are you saying he's wrong?
Heavens no. But I want you to hear in Ted's words how they came across these tunnels under McMartin. If you Google up the McMartin tunnels, you'll surely see what look like old French sewers, massive caverns lined with brick and everything else, and that's what you would believe if you read the conspiracy theory stories about it. But listen to Ted talk about how these tunnels that were ignored by the authorities were actually unveiled.
Well, I'll tell you what, in the spring of 1993, I heard that the property of the McMartin School had been sold from the McMartin family to the defense attorney, actually given to him. He said he was broke and he sold it to a contractor. The contractor was going to build an office building on the space. And I heard that the contractor had this property. And so I went out and contacted him. And I said, dear sir, I would like to have access to that property. He said, I'll give you 2 weeks. I signed a contract, assumed liability, and along with some of the parents, we hired an archaeologist from UCLA, Dr. Gary Stickle, knowing full well that I'm not qualified to say there's tunnels under there, even if I found them. And we began our dig. At the end of 2 weeks, I had to stall, because Dr. Stickle was not quite ready to admit there were tunnels. It took us 34 days. At noon the 34th day, with the bulldozers, with their motors running, ready to knock the building down. He was going to knock the building down and then build this office building. Dr. Stickle said, you know, I can say without any question right now, there had been tunnels under the school, they were filled in. The tunnels were 30 inches wide, 44 to 46 inches deep, with the top of the tunnel 30 inches under the classroom floor. The children were able to walk through it. We're talking about young kids now, right? The adults had to stoop down and walk through, but they could do it. We found a 9-foot wide subterranean entrance under the west wall of dog room. There were 4 classrooms. That was Ray Bucky's room. By the way, Virginia McMartin and Ray Bucky were tried. Virginia, the grandmother, was acquitted. Ray had a hung jury. And we found these tunnels in the middle of the second trial of Ray Bucky. They could have been used to convict him. We called the prosecutor. He sent his investigator out, Mr. Perez. Mr. Perez told me, I don't want you entering in my conversation with the archaeologist. I said, why? He said, you're too argumentative. I said, well, okay, you go in and talk. I'll just keep my mouth shut. We went in, he talked, and he argued with the archaeologist. There's an investigator not qualified to talk about tunnels. He said, there aren't any tunnels there, and the archaeologist, of course, argued about it. Anyway, they didn't use that evidence, strong evidence, in the second trial. They ignored it, right in the middle of the second trial. I might mention this. The children identified professional football players, professional baseball players, household name actors, actresses, and the son of the leading politician, not a leading politician, the leading politician in Los Angeles as being perpetrators.
So they dug up the tunnels, said they were pre-existing, and if you notice the size, it's 30 inches wide, 40-some inches high. These were very old people at the McMartin Preschool, except for the one male who was working there. And also the legend was supposed to say that they had brought cattle through there where they were doing mutilations and murders and things like that. But Ted obviously bullied some archaeologist into writing off on his findings. What other archaeologists said was that at that time period on that property, people used to bury their trash before there was trash pickup. They found debris, they mistook it for evidence of something, and it just wasn't there. So if there's anything I can teach people about the Satanic Panic tonight, because it keeps coming up again and again, if you get into this literature, is that there was no fucking tunnels under McMartin.